Welcome back, and once again Eid Mubarak. We are doing this Eid transmission, and the very idea of Eid al-Azha is compassion and sacrifice, and this is the philosophy, the crux of Eid al-Azha. Our utmost thing is that we practice compassion, we practice tolerance on this Eid. We are joined by our special guest in the studios. Our first guest is Mr. Shaukat Piracha, renowned senior journalist and an analyst, expert on Pakistan's foreign policy specifically. Sir, welcome to the show. We're also joined by Dr. Tahira Shahid, renowned media personality. She's a host and a health expert. Dr. Tahira, thank you for joining us.
Eid Mubarak.
Eid Mubarak to you too. Thank you. Mr. Piracha, starting with this Eid, how do you first of all celebrate Eid al-Azha, and specifically on this Eid that is very different from the Eid that we observe otherwise in this COVID-19 and these the SOPs that we are observing? How do you do it?
Thank you for the invitation. And exactly, I was thinking, what should I talk about, especially when we are talking of Eid. And you very rightly pointed out that this Eid is specific for sacrifice, tolerance, and giving whatever you have in the way of Allah Almighty. This Eid is not a normal Eid, at least in our lives, and lives of the generation that preceded us, and the lives of the generation that's just succeeding us. I mean, my children, my kids, and the boys and the girls of their age, who are in millions in Pakistan and maybe a billion around the globe. So this is a unique time that we are living in. People say, may you live in very interesting time. It's a tragic time.
Chinese thing, right?
Yeah, it's a tragic time because Alhamdulillah, in Pakistan the death rate is not as much, but having said that, as a media person, we always think about these SOPs, we always think about the disease, we always think about the losses. This time Eid is something that there is a fear on the back of our mind, that how many people are suffering, whether the data shared by the government NCOC is correct, whether the testing facility is available in Pakistan at every city, towns, and every metropolitan.
In remote areas, for that matter, right?
I mean, remote area, there is no question of having any testing facility. I am talking of the big cities where labs are, and whether there are doubts that the labs, they have the authentic and accurate testing results, and whether the governments of the day in the provinces, they are hiding the actual numbers or they are giving the full number. A lot of things.
So this governance, by the way, this governance is a big issue all over the world, even like developed countries like US or UK, and they have been having tough time in doing all this. I mean,
pandemic has been occurring every 100 years. As far as I am student of history, as far as I can remember, in 70s, in 18th century, I mean 1700 and 1920, there was pandemic. Then 1820 there was a pandemic. Then 1918 to 20 there was Spanish influenza. Then we are having this virus. But having said, in the time of this fear, in the time of this tragedy, since it's it's Eid day, something also I am observing. In the beginning of COVID-19 days, people were shy of for marriages. That in our society, marriage has always been with full celebration, as Dr. Sahiba is having luckily that traditional dress purely meant for such festivities like marriage, like Mehndi, extra functions. But now, with the increasing time frame in the months of May, June and July, particularly till mid of July, I saw many marriages taking place with so simple means, so simplicity, that I always cherished for that. It's a nikah ceremony is the only compulsion that is enshrined by our religion.
We are adapting to the changes now.
Yeah, similar is, for example, I host my own show Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday on Aj television. I have adopted myself to technology. My guests are sitting on their Skypes, and none of them, rather most of the times, they are not technology oriented people. But now I watch them, they are fixing their
So
Skypes.
we are more tech savvy now, right?
So we are adopting to the changes, and that's something very positive, that we are not discouraged, we are not sitting back idly, rather we are taking the time to forward movement.
Even personally speaking, I had no idea about internet banking, but now I am more acquainted with that as well. We are joined by Miss Aliya Agha. She's an economist. Welcome to the show, Miss Agha. And we'll be discussing about Eid as a symbol, the philosophy of Eid. But before that, to Dr. Tahira. Dr. Tahira, we are adapting to the new changes that are there in our lifestyle, education, working, all that. How do you see this new challenge, first of all? And by the way, first talking about Eid, this Eid, how is that different from other Eids?
I think this Eid is actually going to be an Eid of sacrifice, and it's going to actually, imbibe in us why we celebrate this Eid. This Eid is celebrated because our Prophet was asked to, give up what was most dearest to him, and what was most dearest to him was his son. And it was a question of his faith, that how much does he trust God, Allah, and he is ready to give away everything that was dear to him. And as a result of that, everybody else was asked to give away their cattle, because at that time cattle was it used to denote somebody's status, or was a source of income for them, and was was their livelihood. So this Eid actually is taking from us all of that. So I think that everybody, along with the cattle that they're going to sacrifice symbolically, being a Muslim and everything, should also sacrifice what's most dear to them. And what's most dear to them could be any sort of asset that they possess. For example, if they own a property, then the rent, they can waive off that rent. If they own a business, then they can actually, instead of cutting off the salary, give a part of theirs and make sure that everybody else working is not actually fired and given the full pay in whole. So it's not just the flesh and the meat and the slaughter that's involved. It's actually giving away what was most dearest to us. So yes, technology will everything has come in, and we have learned how to as Sir was saying, that we have learned to be less pompous, less showy, and that's very good, because we have spent more time at home, more time with our children, realized how important family is, realized how important everything else is, other than just show, and other than just working for acquiring money or wealth, and then finding an excuse to spend it. So this Eid, for me, I think it's better than any other Eid that ever was spent, because we're actually celebrating that flavor of sacrifice.
Right. And Ms. Aliya, how do you see this Eid? And first of all, how do you celebrate Eid al-Azha specifically, keeping in mind that this Eid is different from other Eids, and we have to be more compassionate. That's what Hajj teaches us, about compassion and sacrifice. How do you celebrate?
Well, first of all, I'm just going to correct my introduction. I'm a lawyer.
Right, okay.
Well, it's an auspicious day, and Eid is also a festivity for everyone. And this Eid obviously has come at a time where I think we all need to be not only concerned about ourselves, but concerned about our immediate family members. So more than the religious obligation, for which there are many means now. I saw that there's something online Qurbani facility as well. Yeah. So there are means to protect your loved ones at this point in time, because we are facing a very big challenge, and it is kind of like a wartime with an unseen sort of an enemy. And when we want to really celebrate it like a festivity, we want to go near to our dear ones, we want to hug them, and this is the tradition, wear new clothes and hug them and love them, and take their blessings from the elders. So I think we need to kind of refrain from that, unfortunately. Yes, Dr. Saiba is very right that this Eid could be the best Eid, because it teaches you something different. It teaches you how to be, human and human values, and not just in terms of, it's very easy at times for many people to just distribute charity. It's very easy, take money out and distribute. Right. It's very difficult to part with your energy, part with something that is valuable to you, not being able to touch your elder and not take that blessing on this head, because even in last Eid we had some our family doctor's mother actually had visitors from the family, and she contracted corona, due to which she had many complications. So these things we don't know who is asymptomatic, who is not. So we need to be more human in terms of realizing, you know, education and money keeps coming and going. But this time, at this point in time, I think the most important lesson that we need to understand is non-attachment. What our religion and many other disciplines of the world has been you know, promoting for thousands of years, and we have forgotten that because we are just a consumer society now. We just want to acquire, and acquisitions of items really, you know, you identify with your acquisitions.
That's right.
So this is the time when you really need to detach yourself from your acquisitions. Instead of saying I bought such a big bakra or such a big bell, you know, standing outside my house, you're jeopardizing everybody's health.
And that too becomes status symbol, you know.
Absolutely.
It's more about that, and it's less about compassion, less about sacrifice. And Mr. Piracha, all these things, when we talk about compassion and sacrifice, in Pakistan, I think we should also be more concerned about not just about the rituals, but also about the philosophy of this ritual. When I say compassion and I say sacrifice, Muslims and non-Muslims in Pakistan, we all strive for unity, we all are working for our own country. How do you see compassion and sacrifice as a virtue that we are practicing otherwise as society?
I think the second part of the question is very important when you talk about the minorities in Pakistan, Muslims or non-Muslims in this country. And then is the component that how is the feelings among Pakistanis in rituals or otherwise in, I would say, in times of these calamities or tragedies. I, as a journalist, have covered, for example, the earthquake, 2007, you know. And then in 2010, 11, 12, there were massive floods all across Pakistan, you know. And I traveled from Charsada till, you know, Khairpur, Gambat, you know, Tata, etc., all along River Indus, because the devastation was massive of the mighty Indus flooding out. And I saw first time, you know, the water of Indus was, you know, just flowing into Chenab, you know, it's a 200-kilometer area. It was so massive. And then is this COVID tragedy, obviously globally massive, you know. The passions among Pakistanis for helping each other has been tremendous, you know. It has been massive, you know. Starting from earthquake, you know, I could recall lines of big queues of trucks filled with the assistance, you know, filled with the food packets and then the clothing, etc. Then in the flooding areas, you know, I could see people distributing food at massive level. And here in the COVID days, people have been out, you know, despite a fear, you know. This tragedy is different, that you cannot touch anything, you know. When we were coming to your studio, hundreds of questions were in our mind that why should we go to a place I have not secured myself.
Right,
you know?
but we are observing SOPs now, you know. We are at a distance.
I think most of us are already recovered as well.
Yeah, most of us.
Already recovered, but you know, I cannot say. You are a doctor, you have a better idea. But as a layman, I cannot say that the COVID is over and everybody is safe now, you know, until a vaccine, a genuine vaccine is developed and it is distributed, not as the tests, every test has 8,000-9,000 rupees and every family cannot afford.
That's right.
Each family of 5-6 members in Pakistan is the average family numbers, you know, and every family cannot go for testing. 50,000 rupees per testing.
No, it's 5,500.
No,
Right.
I'm saying that if
But
you
that
are
too,
6,
you know, for a family
no,
might not be that easy.
If you are 6-member family
Right.
and you have to spend 8,000 rupees, then it becomes 50,000 rupees. And then doctors say that one test is not enough. If you get
Exactly.
negative one time, you have to go for second and for the third time. These have been problems in Pakistan, you know. Now I come to the minorities or non-Muslims, you know. The white color in our flag symbolizes the non-Muslims in Pakistan, and who are quite sizable numbers in Pakistan. Apart from some isolated incidents, we must confess, that have been happening in parts of Punjab or Sindh, there have been complaints, but overall in Pakistan, there is not much distinction between a Muslim or a non-Muslim. Non-Muslims in Pakistan, almost they enjoy their rights, whatever they are enshrined in the constitution, because it's a constitutional guarantee. It's not executive guarantee. They have their members in the parliament, in the National Assembly, and then later on they were also given 4 seats in the Senate of Pakistan. So I never saw a wider scale discriminatory approach or wider scale discriminatory outrage against the non-Muslims. This day, which is Eid Day, purely a Muslim festival, but I also send Eid greetings to non-Muslim friends who are here in Islamabad or elsewhere, because we think that if a ritual is there, a day of happiness is there, it's shared without any color, without any distinction on the basis of color, creed, religion, etc. They are as much happy today on the Eid day as I am. They are as much worried about the COVID today as I am.
Rightly. And Dr. Tahira, at its very core, Pakistani society is a pluralistic society. We are compassionate people, but this diversity, I think, needs to be taught at the school level, at a much younger level, so that our people become more tolerant to other ideas. I remember in our childhood, we used to study not just Islamiyat, but Diniyat as well.
Moral sciences are more important than just religious studies.
And education should not just be about ornamental education, it should be about life skills.
Actually, everything is. When you were talking about sacrifice, we don't just need to sacrifice, as I mentioned earlier, cattle. We need to sacrifice our pride and our comfort, because it's very easy to go out. It's easier to go out rather than stay in. Actually, it's very hard to stay in. So, and a lot of people that went out, I'm not blaming them, they're very good and they did a lot of drives, etc. But it was more so, unfortunately, for some kind of self-projection or importance, because it's very easy to acquire somebody's money and then gather ration and then distribute it. It is more difficult to actually go out there, clean every gully and kucha and whatever is outside, pick up the dustbin, pick up all that's being thrown, actually go to people, collect their garbage and go make sure it's thrown, or get them stuff that they need. These things are way more difficult. They require your energy, they require your effort, they require your contribution. It's very easy to just ask money and then go distribute it. So I think, first of all, we should discourage the spirit of begging, the spirit of even fundraising, and the spirit of asking money, and rather actually start contributing on our own. Fundraising is fine. I'm not discouraging that as a whole, but it had become very, very rampant in the start. Even the idea of lockdown actually, it lost its purpose when everybody was out on the streets doing this. It has to be through a proper government channel. If there are forces or organizations who are actually confined to do this, then let them do their job. They're trained to do it. They will follow the SOPs. They will collect it from where they have to collect it, and they will distribute it uniformly amongst everybody.
So let's institutionalize,
let's say, it's very, very important charity, so that everybody just doesn't get up, because you can't trust everybody, and then what they're doing, basically, you never know what it's going to lead to. Yes, it becomes very political and commercial and everything as well. And the second thing about minorities, when we talk about minorities, it's very easy for me to sit and say everything, but I think if we hire people in our organizations, we always do hire a few people from other religions, because so that during off Eid holidays, they're the ones working. So when they are working in your organization, whichever that is, then I think whatever you make at home that day, you should go and treat them to it. You should go and involve them in it. That's that is going to be your real contribution to them. Whatever work they do, you have to be with them in their work, right? And that's only when we can actually claim that we are equal and we are giving them equal weightage or not. And being an Abrahamic ritual, we share it with our Christian brothers and sisters as well. So it is their religion, as it is their festival as much as it's our festival.
Well said. And Ms. Aliya, Pakistani society has a great passion for charity. Otherwise, if you look at people, like Piracha Sahab was saying, when there was earthquake or floods or any calamity, big challenge for the nation, people unite and they have great passion for charity, even in these COVID times. How do you think that we can patronize the charity work, keeping in mind that a lot of people might not trust, a lot of institutions? That's why, Dr. Tahira, they go for, independent charity work. How do you see this?
Well, I would say that you know we had an encounter with you know a new investor in Pakistan, a foreign investor, and after some time of their stay here and with various meetings from various organizations and intelligentsia and the elite class and all of that, and their as per their requirements, the comment was, the people in Pakistan are rich, but the government is poor. Unfortunately, you know, what we see is that there is dominance in Pakistan of private movements more, because they are backed by certain industrialists or people who think that they can you know, contribute under CSR. So there are more movements like that, and people refrain from giving you know, or being part of an institutionalized government charity organization, primarily for the reason that accounting becomes quite difficult when it comes to government, and government does not share such information even with the shareholders of such, you know, donations. So I would say that yes, there has been sporadic sort of charity ongoing, and as per the demand of, if there is a demand, there is going to be supply. So there is no harm in sporadic sort of movement, but institutionalization of charity through private organizations is very well established. And now you can have you know, a company made under Section 42, which is a non-profit company, and through that you can you know, distribute things and make it more institutionalized, and the private enterprises can have the I would say resources to do that. So that can happen. But if you want government to be involved, then it can be public-private partnership, and such models have been there and they can be followed.
Well, this is very interesting. The dichotomy at times in the society, Mr. Piracha, is very interesting. People would go for giving hefty and heavy charity, but some of them might not go to give taxes, you know, they won't pay their taxes. So this dichotomy, how do you see it? Not paying taxes at times, but going for hefty and heavy charity.
I thought we are just talking about Eid, you know, and no political, you know, discussion.
This is not political, this is social.
So I thought maybe we will refrain from making any comments or any remarks which could annoy bosses around, you know.
That's fine,
but you know, it's not the first time that this comment is being made. Even Prime Minister Imran Khan, when he was solely chairman of PTI, he used to make it, you know, that there is a trust deficit. People do not trust the government spendings, whether the contribution they are making for some particular aspect will be used for that particular you know, need or requirement, whatever is. This is number one. Second is, this is not the only reason that people do not pay taxes. The tax collection system is also unreliable in Pakistan, non-trustworthy in Pakistan, because the tax machinery many a times it has proven corrupt, incompetent and inefficient, you see. That's why for the last 2 years we have 4 or 5 FBR chairmen replaced, because of the government is setting one target and there is a problem in the collection. When you talk of public charities, there have been one study that the people of Pakistan could contribute about 60 billion rupees per annum. That's and at that time dollar was 60 rupees, you know. So if you translate into dollars, it's not of today's amount, it was 10 years back, you know. Then also compliance to Financial Action Task Force, FATF, it has made things very complicated. When I was a boy growing up, you know, I could see many boxes in different shops, malls, you know, and there were painted names of different organizations. They used to collect these donations or funds, and these boxes of this size, they used to filled with red 100 rupee notes, but that has to be discarded away because of the international, you know, obligations. And now if this practice is discarded. We have very successful examples like Eid Foundation, you know. I mean, whatever they appealed for, people contributed for, you know. So, the private sector donations and transparency is not something that it is always a doubtful exercise in Pakistan. Eid Foundation and like Eid, many other foundations.
And not just Eid, by the way, Dr. Tahira, Prime Minister himself has been a champion of charity work, by the way, you know, Shaukat Khanam, and now being a Prime Minister, of course, there are things different.
Yeah.
But otherwise, in charity work.
Yeah, but you know, that's what I was trying to say is the Prime Minister did that when he reached a certain level in life.
Right.
You know, he established his credibility first. Every Tom, Dick and Harry cannot get up and do that. If a private organization, like she mentioned, a working private organization that has established its trust in the people, even as an organization and whatever they're doing, whether it's a telecom company or it's some other company, and people already trust it for its services, they know it's employing a lot of employers and it has funds, then it's fine. And the Prime Minister was then a cricketer and a politician and everything else. So he actually used that, which was fine, and there was some kind of accountability, and you see things as a result. But what I was referring to is every other person getting up and claiming to do it, right, and doing it here and there and not in a very right or correct manner. For example, the objective of lockdown was infection control. It meant curtailing people to their homes under strict lockdown during that time. It did not mean that you start hoarding stuff first, you start accumulating stuff, then you go on a distributing spree everywhere, and then you're actually jeopardizing everybody involved in the freight process, in the distribution process, in the cameras that were capturing it, process and everything else. So you're actually killing the purpose. So if it's done by proper people who are actually designated for this, who are trained in this, and they follow those real protocols, not just words we called SOPs. Right. SOPs also keep changing. The world is, you know, if we were here a while ago, like about 2 months ago, we would be even following more stricter protocols. The reason why we're sitting here comfortably is because now we're progressing. We're actually in the recovery phase. The world is reopening. The world has actually gotten used to COVID. The world is closer to a vaccination. Half the people have recovered and have immunity. So it all goes that way. So we need to keep evolving and changing. And all I want is that the youth of our country don't get, you know, discouraged by this immediate stardom or think that they're doing something very noble by simply collecting funds and distributing them. Rather, it would be more noble if they go out contributing their social service, their volunteer activity that involves actually working for people, cleaning up stuff, municipality help, and all these kind of aid. That's what I was trying to
That's
assert.
right. And Ms. Aliya, how do you see this patronizing primarily the very philosophy of Eid, this Eid? We are talking about charity because Eid al-Azha is all about charity, you know. You do Qurbani, and after that you give a lot of stuff in charity. So patronizing primarily this passion of young people, how do you see this?
Okay, I with a pinch of salt, I would take that, but I would say it is not about charity. It is about giving away what you love. That is important. And Eid al-Azha, as you know, we've been talking about it, that Hazrat Ibrahim was asked to sacrifice his son. So that is something very difficult for any parent to do, right? So now it has come to the point that what you love, right, is to be. So money is something we love. So we've come to love it. Huh? So you have to sacrifice that part. Now, how you distribute it is, you know, some people say it should go here, it should go there, but there is a specific direction under Islam how it has to be divided and how it should be distributed. So there is no controversy on that. Now, the other part of your question about the
patronizing the young people,
yes,
you know, and how they approach this charity
young
work.
people. There's a word in Urdu called jazba.
Yes.
You know,
That's right.
I can't find the right translation for jazba.
Right.
You know, so when you feel something very strongly about something, there is nothing stopping.
They have this passion.
And yes, there have been movements around the world where young people have set such examples. For example, in France and Germany, there were young people who take food, the leftover food from the restaurants and distribute it. So sometimes we get too comfortable at certain age with our jobs, with our lifestyles. So we have to let the young people really express themselves and learn, because until and unless, you know, I tell you something, I was very young and I Before I started studying law, and I was volunteering with an organization, APWA, All Pakistan Women's Association, which had a lot of clinics in around Pakistan, and I was in Karachi at that time. The first visit I made to one of the clinics in a very, very downtrodden slum area, I realized what I was saying. Because one woman came and she had about 7-8 children for a checkup, and the lady who had come with me, she accompanied me, and she was coming from a very wealthy family, and she said, "Bachon ko nehla ke kyun nahi lai? Why didn't you bathe the children before coming?" She said, "We don't have water to drink. How do you expect me to bathe?" And then, so there you realize what is happening, and Karachi is one city where you open the tap and it's drop by drop. So I even tell my son now, you're living in Islamabad and you don't realize what water is, right. But we have managed with one bucket the whole day at times. So Karachi really teaches you a lot, right, these big cities where there are no amenities and there's a breakdown of amenities and services. So it's important that children realize from young age, and they must have hands-on experience when it comes to charity or doing any philanthropic work, because that shows you, how, and we've had examples, for example, Lord Buddha. Let's look at him. He was a prince. And the first time he stepped out of, the well-guarded palace, right. He was shocked to see even an old man. He was not, his father said, no old, sick, or a sorrowful person will be in the palace. So when he went out, the first old man he saw, he was shocked that people grow old. Then he went out even further and he saw sick people. He didn't know what disease was. So you see, the thing is,
these realities of life.
Realities of life you must expose them to it, and ethics. You teach them ethics, whether at school or at home. And when you know wrong and right, I think then you need to trust the young people once they've understood the lesson.
Very interesting. Mr. Piracha, since we are having this Eid transmission, of course we'll be talking about everything that comes to our mind, how we celebrate Eid, but at the same time, this specific thing that Ms. Aliya has talked about, we tend to live perhaps in a bubble, At times us, at times our children, we have a specific way of life, specific lifestyle. We don't come out of that, and since we don't come out of that, we don't realize the situation in which other people are living, in rest of Pakistan, in remote areas of Balochistan or KP or Punjab for that matter. So when we talk about this Eid, how do you think that at a mass level we can practice compassion, not just totally relying on government, government should be doing this or that, but as us as individuals, as groups working for other people?
Actually, this optimism in Pakistan, optimistic approach in majority of Pakistan, that's a blessing. Because the fear factor that was due to COVID-19 was massive around the globe. But also it was criticized massively, even by myself, that people do not adhere to the SOPs. But their optimistic approach at least did not force them to go into fear and just get discouraged. Because I met many people. I told them I asked them why you are not having these masks or other SOPs, and they said there is nothing.
There's nothing like that.
Because I have immunity, or I do not go to that extent in meeting people. So this optimism in our society. I mean, if a family can pass full day with just one basket of water,
requires a lot of optimism.
It's something that is a resilience, is a courage to live despite all odds, despite these odds. I mean, water is a basic thing in life,
necessity,
basic necessity. I cannot imagine that one can pass even a single day without water. But Karachi, Lahore, it's not only the remote area that you are talking of, Balochistan. I mean, just go 20 kilometers away from Islamabad, you will find many places where there is no clean drinking water facility available. And then, this cooperative approach has been in our society. I mean, In the evening, when I was a child, I could see sharing of bread and butter, in the evening with so many families. If one family has cooked something, they will readily be distributing to their neighbors. That's why our religion, Eid is a festivity of Muslim. It's a Eid the day. This rights of the family, then your relatives, and then your neighborhood is also one of the commandments of our religion. So sharing and then having
Sharing and
obligation
caring,
is part of our faith, part of our religion. Then this sector, for example, there was a boom of the NGO sector in Pakistan. There was a boom of INGO sector in Pakistan. Although later, due to OBL crisis, it was discouraged. There became a phenomenon for a security concern, but there have been also a development through this sector.
Right.
Many international foundations, they contributed and they are still contributing for water facility, for health sector. So this cooperative approach has been part and parcel of our society.
But this Eid, Dr. Tahira, is so different. As Ms. Aliya was saying earlier, we won't be able to meet a lot of our loved ones, our friends, big gatherings at our place. Maybe how do you celebrate Eid, and what are your plans for Eid?
I think, maybe not a very big gathering, but the ones that matter to you. It could be less than 10 people, and they could be, seated far away, and because it's meat, so you can have a barbecue.
As 10 people are not enough.
Yeah.
No, 10 people
9 is good.
But the standard protocol is that, and it's. I think when we talk about tawakkul or faith,
Yes.
and that is what he did, right? He took his son there because he knew God had better plans for him. So I think as a nation, we always have tawakkul and we always have faith. And it is working out. We are striving towards it as well, but there is no need to fear things. There is no need to run away from things. There is a limit to which you can run away from things. And the moment you start fearing something, you're actually putting your body into a stress, into a stress mode, and that actually lowers your immunity more. So it's better to, face it with courage and strongly. Take all the protocols as well. Have a good, nice meal. Feel happy. Cherish your loved ones. And I think that celebration is going to boost you up for the rest of your life as well. And also when we talk about compassion and how we need to include compassion in our lives, so I think this Eid, every Eid, whatever you're buying for yourself from the same store and the same price, get that for whoever works for you, whether it's your maid, your servant, your driver, whatever you call them. But whoever works for you, what is your colleague. They're not your employees, they're your colleagues, right? They work for you in your home, in your office, wherever, and treat them to the same food that you're going to eat on the same table that you're going to eat. Once we stop this difference, and if we are sitting in an air-conditioned room and our servant quarter does not have even a cooler, then I think we are a hypocrite if we sit here and we just claim to be very compassionate and kind and everything. So I guess that's what we need to change.
Right. Ms. Aliya, and how do you celebrate Eid and gathering 10 people or less than 10 people?
I'm going to give you a couple of tips, which I hope the viewers can also, because when you are getting the meat and you're receiving the meat, you must soak it in vinegar for some time. So that would ensure that no organisms are there which would contaminate the food. We are very, very careful on the household help. We have given them breaks, and we are managing the cooking at the minimum level. Yes, you should cook yourself and try out new things yourself. When you want to distribute food, you can take the meat out of that vinegar and you can put them in nice packets, and then if you want to distribute, you can distribute. But one thing is very, very certain, and my heart breaks when I see that. People go on washing their driveways. So we were talking about water and environment and climate change and all of these things. I think we need to be very respectful to others as well. The water that we are using and washing away our driveways because we've made such a mess, I think we need to contain that mess also in specific areas and not endanger everyone and the future generations.
Right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And very happy Eid Mubarak to all of you.
Thank
you
Hope
as
to
well.
see you all very soon. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Piracha, Dr. Tahira, Ms. Aliya. Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much. That's all
Let's take a
from
picture.
today's Eid transmission. See you next time. Khuda Hafiz.